Good afternoon, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here, back in the weather office with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Tuesday, August the 15th, 2023. We have a lot, and I repeat, we have a lot to talk about and digest in today's update, including some rare August heavy rain showers across the Bay Area, including for Southern California. More on that at the very end of this video. But before we do cover the western half of the U.S. as far as that tropical moisture goes, it's a good idea that we really focus on the Atlantic mainly because activity is going to really blossom over the next 10 days or so. And what I mean by that, we have tropical waves coming off of Africa that could give seedlings to maybe a depression or two, you never know, in the next 7 days. So here's a look at the true color visible satellite imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. These images that you're looking at are 100% for free. All you need to do is click the link below this video to tropicaltidbits.com and voila, you can view these images. So, of course, long story short, we have a lot of Saharan dust out there right now covering much of the central and eastern Atlantic, such as the Cabo Verde Islands up here to the north. Yeah, there's some Saharan dust, but notice there's not much thicker dust plumes coming off of Africa. So in other words, a lot of the dust that you're seeing on the satellite imagery is beginning to get diluted. It's beginning to mix out. It's going to begin to settle eventually. And yep, the Atlantic is going to be open for business from here on out as we're tracking probably not just one or two tropical waves, probably a few after that too. So a very busy Atlantic, I'm afraid to say, is on the way. Not only that, if we look at the imagery closely, it's very hard to make out. It's kind of all tangled up in here with the drier air, but there is a tropical wave here, very weak or two, that might eventually sneak its way into the Gulf of Mexico in the next 5+ days, and that could get our attention eventually. So now let's take a look at the Eastern Pacific Basin. I wanted to show you that really quickly because, yes, we're going to be covering a lot about California's weather, I'm afraid, for early next week. And that's because we are watching this area of spin in the atmosphere. This is another very aggressive, strong tropical wave. And I mean, this could almost be a depression by tonight. It is just swirling. It is spinning very vigorously. There is major, or not major anymore, but Hurricane Fernando was a major hurricane yesterday. That's beginning to die out as it enters a drier air, more shear to deal with. But it's going to be this guy, I'm circling this in magenta colors, that we all in California, even the desert Southwest, will definitely need to pay very close attention to, as this could bring in a lot of rainfall, some very heavy swell, some crashing waves along the Southern California coast like San Diego, and could bring in some pretty strong winds too. Something that California doesn't typically see at all for the entire summer, unless it's an El Nino, which we are in an El Nino. But again, we're going to save the best for last. So towards the end of the video, we will be looking at California's weather because I'm very concerned about it. So what I'm also a little worried about is these two areas that we have to watch. Yeah, one area is nearly pretty close to Dominica as well as the U.S. Virgin Islands here. This is a very slim chance, so a 10% chance of tropical formation in the next 10 days. Probably not going to develop in anything significant for the time being, but the models are having a hard time grasping on which area, well, I'm about to show you here on the global computer models, on which vorticity, which portion of this trough begins to spin up something, right? So this is kind of really entangled, very complicated out here. There's a 30% chance of that tropical wave coming off of Africa to do something in the next 7 days. So there are two areas to watch. Now, even so, there is nothing to watch right now in the Gulf of Mexico. I have not been doing my tropical outlooks on Twitter. I will hopefully have one out this evening, and I'm going to put an area out here to probably watch and monitor closely because there is a wave out here that's kind of hiding under the radar that we will need to watch closely once it enters the Gulf of Mexico. And we all know how warm the Gulf of Mexico actually is. Now, really quickly, I wanted to show you the Eastern Pacific Basin with the National Hurricane Center. There's Fernanda, Category 2. It is weakening fairly quickly as it runs into that drier air and cooler sea surface temperatures with a little bit of shear to deal with. So Fernanda, not going to last too much longer as it heads west. But again, there's our area that we're watching. East Pacific 90, or basically Invest 90E, that is. That's going to be the one that is going to grab a lot of people's attention, not just along the Mexico coast or Baja California, but maybe areas like San Diego, Los Angeles. Might even get my attention up here where I'm at near Sacramento. That's where I'm out of. That's where I live. Now, this could personally be a bit of a worry sign for what's to come. All right, let's take a look at now the models, right? Looking at the Atlantic, that's where we're kind of aiming at. We're going to also show you the ensemble prediction system ran by the Euro model. We're going to also look at the Canadian and the GFS. We're going to compare a lot of models for you all because that's what I do for a living. That's kind of what my gut feeling needs to show you all, is to compare these models. So at least we're not looking at one model and be like, David, why are you hyping it up? Why are you looking at this model? Like, dude, what the heck are you doing? You're dumb. I'm not dumb. Okay, I'm not dumb. We're going to be looking at all these models. All right, first off, we're going to stop and make a pit stop. Yeah, make sure you get some food along the way too. Get up out of your seat and literally go get some popcorn, because this is going to be a long discussion. So here's a look at the Euro. Again, simple way to put it. I'm not going to try to get so much into detail here. I want to be as simple as I can. But simple way to put it, we're looking at three different things on the Euro here. This is a plot system made by Dr. Levi Cowan. Three things that we look for is vorticity. That is this box. So let me use a black line here so you all can see that. It is right here. Half of my picture is covering it from like 20, the number 20 all the way down. But this is the amount of spin that's in the atmosphere. Then you get your heights here. This is your geopotential heights. Those are your thicknesses. So if there's more higher heights, the atmosphere in the low levels is actually thicker. And we're looking at 850 millibars. And then your wind barbs here are indicating which way the wind is blowing from. And in this case, it is blowing from the east like it should. It's the trade winds. What do you expect, right? But down here, there is some vorticity. It's very broad. It's very stretched, right? It's like stretched like Laffy Taffy. Have you ever had Laffy Taffy and you just kind of stretch it and it becomes all stringy? Have you done that with cotton candy? Have you done that with Play-Doh or with some modeling dough where it kind of gets stretched? In other words, when you, if people ever make candy canes and you kind of heat the candy up, it also becomes stringy. Glass can also become very stretched too, because it's, you can stretch it when it's hot. It's very malleable. In other words, the intertropical convergence zone is very malleable now. We can stretch it out very nicely because there's a lot of vorticity down here. So let's take this forward in time. And yeah, here it is, out to, let's do day 3. We can see right in there, there's your vorticity. It's very stretched, like Laffy Taffy again. We're not seeing one area that's becoming focused for spin to become a named system. However, what we don't see very much is what might be going on over here in the Caribbean. I know it's a little bit of a spin, okay? It's just a little, it's nothing to worry about, but you never know. That's my point here in this video. You just never know what might end up happening under the favorability increasing. So we have a tropical wave moving into the Bahamas here in 3 days. While there's not a lot of spin here, you get the idea. We saw it with Dora, how Dora looked very interesting. It died out in the Atlantic, but then it reappeared. Yeah, it reappeared in the East Pacific, get my words straight here, and it became one of our longest tracked hurricanes in modern records in the Pacific. Yeah, it went all the way from the East Pacific all the way into the Western Pacific as a typhoon. So just kind of think very carefully here that just because we don't see much on the models is our guidance. It's just like saying, based on now, this is what might happen. but maybe the model is missing something, like for the amount of spin that is expected, maybe some favorable environment there that the model's not seeing. You just never know. And we cannot just kind of use our arm here and just kind of dust it off and be like, whatever, David, you're just saying things just to scare people, whatnot. No, this is a tropical wave that I am not ignoring at all. It is oriented in a way that could give some people of attention. It's making Mark Sedith, which is on YouTube. You can check him out. There's a link in the description. He has a YouTube channel. He's very good at what he does. A few other forecaster agencies are already bringing it to people's attention, that wave is something that we may not be able to ignore. Look at this, a little bit of a Fujiwara effect on the Euro model. Who knows if that will happen? Probably not. Very crazy, wild Willy Wonka scenario here out to day 5. Another wave coming off of Africa by that point. Let's go forward here. Yep, there is a signature. Very little, if any, vorticity, but we saw, you know, remember Hannah? Hannah looked kind of like this, right? It looked like just a little vorticity, but again, the waters that I'm about to show you in the Gulf really prove how quick things could spin up in the Gulf this go around. And then by the time we go to day 7, that's the very end of the model. Again, we have a wave here. I'm just going to mark these down. A wave here, a wave here, a wave here. Nothing coming off of Africa after that point, but there are 4 areas, folks. A quartet of interest, we should say. So now looking at the Canadian model really quickly, this is the potential. Right here is what I'm watching. That wave right here entering the Gulf of Mexico. This would be in 5 days. This would be Sunday morning, August the 20th. 2 other areas that we have to watch. Another area here, another area here. The Canadian is going gangbusters, I would say, right? Would you all agree going gangbusters with the amount of systems that we're watching here? And one of those systems, yeah, might intensify a little bit or get better organized in the western Gulf of Mexico, while these other 2 areas, when we go forward in time, yeah, there's just a lot of activity that we have to watch. And this goes out to about day 7, day 8, with an area here, an area here, an area here, and of course one entering the Gulf of Mexico that we cannot take our eyes off of, because you all know what's coming, and it could come without warning like we had with Harvey. I mean, Harvey really intensified right before it made its way on shore because it moved very slowly. Looking at the GFS model, the GFS not very aggressive. You can see here out to day 3, again, this entanglement of energy, spin in the atmosphere. If we go forward in time, it does a little Fujiwara effect. But I don't know. The GFS is just not having much at all in the Caribbean, nor in the Gulf of Mexico. More so, it's more of our generous model. We'll see which one wins out. But look at that. We might have some vorticity building up there in the southern portion of the Gulf into the Bay of Campeche by about day 8 to day 10. So the Gulf of Mexico, yeah, very warm. 31, 32 Celsius. I'm going to be as simple as I can. I've talked about this many times in previous videos, how warm the Atlantic actually is and how it could really lead to big problems if anything takes advantage of the warm Gulf waters, okay? It doesn't take much, simply to put it, because water temperatures are in the upper 80s to lower 90s. Water temperatures off the Florida coast are ironically ridiculous. They are almost 33 Celsius. I have friends that live in Florida, like in southern Florida. Alec Baller has told me in the past how miserable it's been down there. Hot, humid. It's just hasn't been comfortable at all. It's just been ridiculous. Also, I have friends down here in the Gulf, like, let's see if I can think of the name by heart. Crazy Chicken Dude. He lives out of Mobile, Alabama. I have other friends that live in the Panhandle, and they've come to me and asking me, dude, David, this is ridiculous. It's been hot and humid here. It's just been miserable. I mean, in a long stretch here, there is still excessive heat warnings down there because of how hot it's been. And I don't see pattern. I don't see the changes coming at all. These waters are only going to get warmer, I'm afraid, from here on out. And that, again, if anything takes full advantage of, okay, and it moves into the wrong spot at the wrong time, you better hope you're prepared. That's all I gotta say, because we could see some very intense hurricanes with very little notice. They could spin up very quickly under that environment. The upper ocean heat content is ridiculous. It is uncharted territory here in the Gulf and in the northwestern Caribbean. I'm not just saying this to be hyperbole, in other words, instead of saying hyped up or whatever. I don't like hyping things up unless they really get my attention, unless it's my concern to share with you all. It's in other words of saying, Dave, I am concerned, folks, about what I'm seeing. So I'm going to relay that information to you, because this amount of upper ocean heat content could lead to some of the most intense hurricanes that we have seen in a while. Does it have to happen? Of course not. There could be a lot of shear over the Caribbean. There could be a lot of dry air that prevents these things. But I'm just saying, if everything lines up perfectly, it's going to get ugly very fast if we get a tropical wave that moves through this region. Okay, enough with the sea surface temperatures. Let's go and move on with our forecast here. Let me actually make the screen a little bit more wider so you all can see that a little bit better. So we can make and condense this down a little so you can all see. So this is in the next about 6 days or so. Yep, look what we got in the Gulf of Mexico. Yep, I'm surprised the NHC doesn't have anything out in that area right now. In my personal opinion, I would probably give that a 10% chance of formation, of tropical formation, at least in the next 7 days or so. There is quite a bit of models here, and a few of them are indicating tropical intensity, and there's 50 members that run the ensemble forecast. We have a lot of activity that could flare up here in the central Atlantic, more out here towards the Caribbean, near the Caribbean, and the north southwestern side of the Atlantic. I mean, some of these models here indicate maybe strong tropical storm or low-grade hurricane intensity. So yeah, we have our eyes glued to the Atlantic. Looking out to 10 days, yeah, look at this. I mean, look at a lot of clustering on the ensemble forecast on the Euro in the Gulf. That's why I am not ignoring that little system. Remember that little piece of energy that we were looking at, folks? All right, so now that we talked about that, I got everything off my chest. Before we talk about California's weather, sorry I'm flipping screens all the time, we want to talk about climatology really quickly. This is important. Okay, I repeat. All right, August 1st is here, September 1st is here. We are right now down the middle of this. So look at where we're at on climatology. Yes, it all makes sense. The Atlantic is waking up because of climatology. This is very valuable this time of the year. We're seeing that ramp up, and look where we have to go still. If you follow my arrow, we still have to go up to the peak here, which is not until, climatology speaking, until the 10th through the 12th of September. Really not until mid-September is when the Atlantic usually peaks with activity, and if you follow this box, we could have activity all the way until mid to late October. We've seen a lot of that in the past, not recently, but I mean 2005, you get the idea. We've had some busy Novembers, busy Octobers especially, so maybe it is that since we're increasing a little late this year, not as late as last year, it might just carry on all the way into, say, late October or early November. Despite we have an El Nino on our toes that we're watching. Not only that, there is also some interests for California standards with what might be appearing off the radar, or within the radar, I should say, within the realm of that. We have EP, or East Pacific 90, Invest 90E, that is going to head this way, right? Follow my cursor on that. Let's make this go forward. Yeah, look at the ensembles. This is in the East Pacific, by the way. This is out to Saturday, the 19th of August. And yeah, there's a lot of clustering here, which means there's a lot of members that are indicating that this could be a major hurricane, perhaps a violent hurricane. It doesn't surprise me, and that is going to slowly weaken as it moves to the northwest. But unfortunately, we can only go out to 126 hours on the 12Z ensemble forecast. Let's get back into the global models again. Now, for a lot of Californians, Tom Byrne, you're in California. If Ronald Martinez, if you're watching this video, you're down in the Stockton area. Michael Guerrero, you're in the Roseville area near Sacramento. I hope you watch this video. Hopefully you watch the entire video or you skip to the end to this point, because this is very concerning. Okay, again, not for the hype, not for the views, not just to get attention, but California rarely gets what you're about to see here. So let's just put this into motion, right? We have the monsoon. We had some high-based activity yesterday and the day before because of this cutoff low that is just hugging the central coast of California. We're getting southeasterly flow overhead into our area. That's helping to bring in the monsoonal moisture. But watch what happens here. The pattern is in a way that this trough just sits here, and it might even retrograde by the latter part of the weekend. So into Sunday and Monday, we might see that trough once again retrograde a little bit. And what you see down here is gonna be very interesting. Let's kind of make this go forward a little bit. Okay, we get the monsoon, a lot of the monsoon into Utah. Yeah, Diana, this is for you. You are near the Park City, Utah area. In general, I don't want to give your exact location, but you're generally near the Park City, Utah area. Arizona, people that live down here in Phoenix, you're going to get quite a bit of moisture, lots of rain. The monsoon, dew points probably in the low to mid 70s. It's going to feel like Florida, where it shouldn't feel like Florida, in the deserts of the West. So let's go forward here on the Euro. Does this ring a bell to you? Look at in Southern California here. This is for Monday next week, for August 21st. Yes, what is that, my guys? That's the monsoon. That's the subtropical. In fact, one could even argue it could be tropical related because it's a lot of moisture out there. Ronald's been talking about this on his Twitter page. By the way, there will be a link to his Twitter page because he's been really worried and more concerned about this. Yes, it's beneficial, but two, we're not supposed to have a lot of rain in August. And here it is in our area in August during the driest part of our summer season, which actually, to be specific, Sacramento only receives about 1 or 2/100ths of an inch in the month of August. I think Fresno and Stockton received nothing to maybe a trace at most. So getting an inch or more of rain would be phenomenal. That would probably be the wettest August ever on record because of all that moisture. And even so it doesn't look like a lot, wait until I show you something. That moves out by Thursday next week. So now another product that I like to look at is the total perceptible water imagery. This is how much water would be if I can get my words together. It's basically, in other words, how much water is in the atmosphere within a cubic kilometer or so. So if you think about it, you compress the atmosphere down, you get an inch of water if everything was perfect, right? Put this into motion. What does this look like to you all? Monsoonal moisture, right? Those PWatt values. 2 inches, 1.5 inches. Even look at that, 2.25 inches in Bakersfield. It doesn't end there. Look what happens. Look at California here. 2 inches plus of PWatt values. That is absolutely historical for many standards that we cannot wrap our heads around. Our PWatt anomalies, I mean, look at that. That is just ridiculous. Ridiculously far above average. I mean, those PWatts there, that is, I think it's in inches. I believe it's in inches. If it is, Wow, that is 5 to 7 inches above normal in PWAT values. That is very significant. So you can kind of get an idea that to that, and our percent of normal is roughly about 350%. So that is very, very high. The atmosphere is wet. I'm betting on some big problems. Flooding, maybe some mudslides down there in Southern California if the Euro comes to fruition. Look at the rain totals. Let me actually just focus on the Southwest itself here. Again, you can see there is 90E working its way up the California coast. And look at these rainfall totals. Southern California, 5-6 inches of rain. That is enormous, ginormously above normal. Look at the rainfall totals here in Northern California. 1 to 3 inches they're expected. Portions of the Sacramento Valley, Stockton area get about an inch to maybe 1.5 inches of rainfall. This would be very good news, and certainly it would add more to our drought situation. We're not in a drought, but this could remove more of it, but also it can damage crops too that are not supposed to get wet this time of the year. Like the wine grapes that I have in the back, they irrigate them, but they're irrigating the roots. They're not irrigating the top. So having a lot of this rain on the grapes could really lead to some mildew problems and a lot of agricultural damage that we do not want to see. Long story short, that's something on my radar that we have to really watch closely for. Not only that, I also have to keep an eye on my grandpa that is going through a lot right now. I've told you guys this yesterday that my grandpa is on, I really shouldn't really be mentioning this, but I'm going to be very simple with this. Simply to put it, he is on hospice. So therefore, I have my ears open. If my grandma calls me, I have to go downstairs and help her. And then at that point, usually that means Pat's Path Predictor, okay? He left a comment yesterday letting you all know that he is going to help me out if needed. So be sure to check out his YouTube channel. There will be a link in the description below this video. Again, he is my substitute if I do need him for any reason. Like Saturday, I'm probably going to need him to upload for me while I do my weather station project. Something that I'm also not looking forward to very much, but it has to get done when it has to. All right, well, that's going to do with this video, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please share, like, and subscribe, and I'll be back with you tomorrow. Hopefully, fingers crossed that I see you tomorrow with another tropical weather outlook and discussion.